It's that time of year again where the weather is getting nice and it's time to get out of the house for some family fun. Lilliput is the perfect place and is open for the season. Be the first to take on their newest escape room, The Bunker. It's intense, exciting, and totally unforgettable. Prefer spooky? Try the Haunted Mansion. When you're done escaping, hit the mini golf course, go-karts, and jump pads. Lilliput is perfect for parties and group events too. Visit lilliput.net for hours and start your spring adventures at Lilliput.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me. And, tonight I'm really excited, and this has been in the works for a little while. And, I know that a lot of people know such a character such as Elvira, right? But let's go back further, and let's go back to where it really began. And one of the great media people in the 1950s out of LA, especially when it came to being able to introduce horror movies and be able to really play up that genre, was Vampira. And this is one of those great, and in my opinion, and I'm going to be, my guest might set me straight on this and might be completely different, but one of the great things about this is that, to me, this is really like wonderful 1950s Los Angeles television. And there isn't a lot that exists of this, but Vampira's place in television history, in media history, it cannot be overlooked at all. And my guest is tonight the niece of Vampira. Vampira's name is Maila Nurmi, and her niece, Sandra Niemi, wrote a book called Glamour Ghoul, The Passions and Pain of the Real Vampira, Maila Nurmi, and it's available on Amazon. And I want to talk about her life. I want to be able to really kind of like share my excitement over that portion of history, and I'm really excited for this. And so I'd like to welcome on Sandra. Sandra, welcome to GhostBox Radio. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm very, very happy to be here with you tonight.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And I'm very happy that be able to talk with you. And I came across your book, Glamour Ghoul, The Passions and Pain of the Real Vampira. I kind of came across it by accident, I'm going to be very honest. But as soon as I saw that, I just was like, I need to talk to Sandra, because this is one of those great, Vampira is such a iconic person. And you know what makes me sad about all this is I mean, so much time has now passed since she made her debut. I ask people, do you remember her? And a lot of people, and younger people I talk to, they're like, no. And I feel bad about that, because she was an original.
Oh, she was a very, very an original. She made her own Vampira costume out of $5 worth of fabric she had gotten from a store. Mm-hmm. And with that, she fashioned her Vampira costume. And that in itself was very, very creative. And then she had to fashion her own long fingernails. They did not make artificial long nails for women in 1954. So she fashioned them out of plastic. And then she would shape them by rubber banding them to pencils and put them in the freezer to maintain their shape. And only then would she take them out and glue them to her own fingers and paint them what she called hemorrhage red. So Maila was very, very creative. Her arched eyebrows, which I called in the book boomerang eyebrows, came from the evil queen in Snow White that she had seen the movie when she was 15. So Vampira is partly the evil queen.
Well, am I correct in understanding that Disney actually based Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty off of her?
That's right. I have a friend named Ray Green, who is a documentarian, and he did the documentary Vampira and Me, and he is the one that delved into that and called Disney, and they dug into their archives, and they said, in fact, Maila Nurmi was there in November of 1959, excuse me. And her Maleficent's actions and her movements came from Maila. Maila said how the character should move.
Wow, I mean, and that's I think that's a kind of a hidden. I mean, I know it was in the documentary, but it's kind of a hidden sort of fact, and what a huge part in one of Disney's most iconic villainous ever. I mean, that is just I just love that. Because I love Sleeping Beauty, I love the Disney animations, and now I will never be able to see it without seeing her in it, and it's just a perfect fit.
Well, it came from a note she wrote in her diary, which I inherited, in November of 1950. It's not 1959, it's 1956, excuse me.
Sure.
Where she had, at the time, she was filming Plan 9 from Outer Space and going and having meetings with Disney. And when I looked at that, I thought, Walt Disney? What was she doing at Walt Disney? And I happened to mention it to Ray Green, and he said, I'm going to check into this. And that's when he did the research and did confirm that Maila was the model for Maleficent.
Wow.
He confirmed that.
I love that. That makes me so happy. I just absolutely love that. Now, what was it that made you decide I need to write this book?
Oh, boy, that fell in my lap. Boy, it's kind of a long story. When I went to Los Angeles a few days after Maila passed away, I met one of her former friends named Stuart Timmons, and he introduced himself as saying, I'm your Aunt Maila's last gay husband. They were never gay. They were never married. Maila was married to another gay man in 1961. But anyway, tongue in cheek. And I really liked Stuart, and he was already an author, and he helped me go through Maila's things. But in the meantime, he said, "Can I write a book on your Aunt Maila's biography?" And I said, "Sure, go ahead." Well, as luck would have it, that was January 18th, 2008, and on January 31st, 2008, 54-year-old Stuart Timmons suffered a massive stroke from which he never recovered.
Oh.
So he was out of the picture, and I had all of these, well, it turned out to be garbage bags full of memorabilia that I had collected from Maila's apartment, and I shipped them from California to Oregon, where I lived. And I started going through all of these pictures and diaries and notes and letters, and I thought, here's a story. And you know what? There's nobody left to write it.
Yeah.
There is nobody that knows her childhood, her when she was a teenager, and when she went to Hollywood, and when she got married to Dean Reisner, and and the birth of Vampira and all of the wonderful things that she accomplished. There's nobody. There's only me. And so I said, well, I guess I have to do this because I cannot allow my Aunt Maila to just be a sad postmark in horror history. She deserved so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote it.
And thank goodness that you did, because you're right. Do you think that she is not as well remembered as she should be?
She always intended to write her own autobiography, but time ran out for her. But I know that she had 4 serious attempts to write it, and then it all fell apart. Either she thought they were trying to steal her book, or she couldn't finish her book because she was upset or nervous or, full of self-doubt. But Stuart, when they were friends during the Elvira lawsuit, Stuart Timmons, he wanted to write her biography then, and that eventually led to her banishing Stuart from her life, which Maila often did with people. Mm-hmm. She would just banish them from her life forever, like she did her own father. And so it just never got written, but she wanted to do it. And it should have been out there. Her story needed to be out there, and so I'm glad it is now.
You bring up the Elvira thing, and if I'm not mistaken, from the research that I did, that case favored in Cassandra Peterson, that she was not copying Vampira with her persona of Elvira. I have always enjoyed Elvira, but I cannot understand how that case went against your aunt. You know what I mean? I'm surprised by that, because to me it's a absolute, and with the circumstances around it, it's an absolute, to me, version of Vampira.
It is. The tattered dress, the death's head sofa, red, and I think she had a poison bar. The only difference was Vampira was aloof and powerful, and Elvira was I don't know, sort of a bimbo, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's where the two characters were different. But Maila should have won that lawsuit, because it certainly was a ripoff. And not only that, as you probably read in the book, Elvira's show, before she was named Elvira, and they had named the show The Vampira Show.
Yeah.
They were going with that show, and then Maila threatened a lawsuit. So on that day that they opened the Elvira Show, they had changed the name to Elvira that day. So from that point on, she was no longer Vampira, the new Vampira. She was Elvira.
Gosh, that's too bad. I mean, that's really unfortunate, because Elvira and Cassandra Peterson has had a great, lucrative career from that, and it feels very unfortunate and unfair that Maila did not get that, and she originated that character.
And Maila could not even afford electricity when Elvira was, all over the place, and her show was huge success in movies and everything else, and here was Maila living in dire poverty. It just is sickening. I mean, even now as I think about it. And I didn't know where Maila was. I didn't know she was dead or alive. Nobody knew until I found her in 1988.
So she just totally went off the grid for everybody, huh?
Well, she did for her family. My grandmother, Maila's mom and my dad's mom died in June of 1957. I was 10 years old, and we attended her funeral. And I saw Maila then, and I saw her. I think that was the last time that my father saw his sister, and I saw Maila until 1988. By that time, my father had passed away. He died in 1977 at the age of 55, and I tried to find Maila to tell her her brother had died, and I even enlisted the help of the Red Cross, and they couldn't find her. So she didn't learn of his death until the first letter that I wrote to her after I found her in 1988. And the reason why I couldn't find her is she was going by the name Helen Heaven then, not by Maila Nurmi.
Wow. Wow, that's was she happy to hear from you, or did she really want to distance herself from everybody?
She was happy. She wrote me back within 3 days of my first letter, and it was 12 pages long.
Oh, wow.
And from that moment on, we planned on meeting, and it took me another 9 months to save the money to drive to Los Angeles to see my Aunt Maila, and I spent a week with her. It was wonderful. We hit it off. It was just a fabulous time. And we did a lot of talking. I never asked her about the Elvira lawsuit. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew it was going on in the back of my head. I didn't know at the time that it consumed my Aunt Maila. Of course it would.
Sure.
I just wanted to know my Aunt Maila. I wanted to know what she did with her time and her favorite foods, her favorite color, what she liked to do, what she liked to read. You know, I just was wanting to know who she was as a person. I didn't even mention Vampira because to me, Vampira was just my Aunt Maila in a black dress. That's all. You know, it wasn't, it was a costume, and I wasn't curious. I mean, like everybody else, Vampira, why didn't you, you know, she's not Vampira. She's my Aunt Maila, and she's family, and that's who I want to know.
I love that. Why don't we, Sandra, why don't we do this? I want to take my first break here. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Sandra Niemi about Maila Nurmi, also known as Vampira. We'll talk about the book that Sandra has written, as well as want to get some more questions in. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh, every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. It's that time of year again where the weather is getting nice and it's time to get out of the house for some family fun. Lilliput is the perfect place and is open for the season. Be the first to take on their newest escape room, The Bunker. It's intense, exciting, and totally unforgettable. Prefer spooky? Try the Haunted Mansion. When you're done escaping, hit the mini golf course, go-karts, and jump pads. Lilliput is perfect for parties and group events too. Visit lilliput.net for hours and start your spring adventures at Lilliput.
Des Moines Con returns to the Iowa Events Center Hy-Vee Hall May 30th through June 1st. Des Moines Con is a celebration of comics, toys, TV, film, art, cosplay, games, and all things nerdy. It's also a family-friendly event where you can meet your favorite celebrities, browse the vendor hall and artist alley for the coolest merch, watch celebrity Q&As, and even more. Des Moines Con is bigger and better than ever before with guests like Daredevil himself, Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, also from Daredevil, Full Metal Jacket, Law & Order, Saturday Only. Plus, other great guests from voice actors to authors over the entire weekend. 3 days of action-packed fun at the Iowa Events Center Hy-Vee Hall. Tickets start at $60. Kids tickets are just $8 for the entire weekend. Don't wait to get your tickets. Buy your tickets and get more information at DesMoinesCon.com. And don't forget, Madison Comic and Pop Culture Expo and Twin Cities Con are coming up this year too. New guests are being announced all the time. Go to NerdStreetUSA.com for more information.
And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I am very excited. Our guest tonight is author Sandra Niemi. She wrote a book about her aunt. You may have heard of her aunt, Vampira. And Vampira, there's a lot that Vampira has been in pop culture. We're going to talk about a lot of this. The book that Sandra wrote called Glamour Ghoul, The Passions and Pain of the Real Vampira, Maila Nurmi, is available on Amazon. It's going to be available on my website, ghostboxradio.com, under Ghostbox Book Club. There'll be an Amazon-affiliated link there. Sandra, when we left off in the last segment, we were talking about your aunt, just talking about you being reconnected with her and whatnot. You know, you talked a little bit about, that reconnection and celebrating and getting to know each other again. What sort of person was Maila?
She was highly intelligent and funny. She had a great sense of humor, and she had a passion for animals, like I do, all animals. And she had a garden where she grew weeds, because she said, just because they're weeds doesn't mean they deserve to be destroyed. Mm-hmm. They have a right to a life just like everyone else. So she went out and watered them and kept them blooming, and it was quite lovely. And she lived in a garage. It was a very small one-car garage in back of another house. It had no windows except for one that was high up near the ceiling in her living room where a pigeon lived. And he could no longer fly. She had rescued him from outside and took him in. And she also had a black lab named Bogey that she adopted from a liquor store. The liquor store's name was Bogey's. Oh. And so he was homeless and hanging around, and he needed a home, so Maila took him home. And he was a lovely dog. I met him, and I also met the bird. I can't remember the bird's name, Snoopy or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he didn't live in a cage. He lived and did whatever he wanted and shared Maila's toast in the morning. And very happy. But her apartment, she loved that apartment. She lived there for 13 years. And I didn't know it, but Stuart, I mentioned him earlier, yep. He said that the garage had a dirt floor from which they had laid plastic and then cardboard and then a rug. And he said it was fine until it rained, and then it got a little soggy. But like I said, she lived there for 13 to 15 years, and she had a sink, and she had a toilet, of course, and she did not have a bathtub or a shower, so she had to wash at the kitchen sink. And she had a hot plate to heat coffee or soup or whatever she wanted, and she did have a small refrigerator, but that was it. Very, very frugal.
Very minimalist. Very minimalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was neat when I got there. But the first thing I said when I came into her apartment, I looked to Maila was sitting to the left, and she had a small television on top of a high, I don't know, piece of furniture. And on the right-hand side, there was what I call a silver trunk. It was, in fact, a gray military footlocker. And as soon as I saw it, I recognized it from the time I was 10, and I was at my grandmother's funeral. And I can remember my father picking it up and carrying it to our car to take it back to Oregon. It was his mother's footlocker. And Maila said, oh, no, that's mine. You can't have that. And he said, well, Mom told me to take it. She said, no, it's mine. So my dad left it with her. And then here it was in 1988, sitting in her living room.
Wow.
And she says, that's where I keep all my treasures. And I'll show you. And so she opened it up, and there were the bat sunglasses. And there was a proposal from Marlon Brando asking her to marry him. And there were some fingernails left over from her Vampira days. And then there were just other papers and photographs and things like that. And so when she passed away, the first thing I said is, I've got to find that silver trunk. I've got to find that silver trunk. And I found it stacked at the bottom of a huge stack of other things. And when I opened it up, it was empty.
Oh, no.
It was lined with old comics, and it was completely empty. And I knew somebody had stolen the contents.
Oh, that's too bad.
As it turned out, they had. That's another whole story. Another whole story, perhaps, for another time.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Wow.
She still had the silver trunk.
What is it about? And we're talking to Sandra Niemi tonight. She's the author of Glamour Ghoul, The Passions and Pain of the Real Vampira, Maila Nurmi. What did Maila think that? What did Maila ever say? What really drew her to Vampira?
Well, I don't think she didn't have any intention that would be in her future. I'm sure as a young girl, she left Astoria when she was 18. She landed in L.A. October the 3rd. Gosh, what was it, 1941, just 2 months before Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
She was 18, and she went to live with her aunt and uncle in the Gaylord Hotel. That would have been her mother's brother and his wife, and they were deeply religious. And Maila's mother and father had said, well, you can leave Astoria, Oregon, but you're not going to New York like you want to. You're going to go live in Los Angeles with your aunt and uncle so they can keep an eye on you. And right from the beginning, Maila really wanted to be a monologist. She wanted to be the female Orson Welles. And she had practiced monologues in her youth many, many times. Now remember, her father was an orator. He called himself the man of 10,000 speeches. And so Maila accompanied him on tours and learned how to give speeches. And so monology, or speaking monologues, came to her quite easily, and she interviewed for a couple of radio jobs but was never hired. And then she knew she had to support herself, so she went to work at a department store, and they realized that Maila was becoming quite the beauty, and so they offered her a job of modeling hats, because a pretty face always sells a hat.
Mm-hmm.
And so she did some print ads in that respect as a hat model, and from that she progressed to dancing in various clubs, and that's where she met her husband, Dean Reisner, who himself had won an Oscar for an animated show called Villain Coup. And they were together for 6 years. And from that, when she was with Dean, is when Vampira was born.
Wow. And and the thing about Vampira to me is I thought that she had been doing that for, decades upon decades, but the original show was only for about 1 year, wasn't it?
It premiered April 30th, 1954, and I think she was fired in April of the next year, 55. And you know why she was fired.
I was just going to ask why.
I
was just going to ask, why was she fired?
Okay, we found this out. She never ever talked about it, but we found it out, Ray Green and I. Maila was approached by George Gobel.
Yes.
To be on his show. And KABC, who did the Vampira show, said, no, you can't do it, because George Gobel is on television on Saturday night at 10 o'clock, and it doesn't get over until 11 o'clock, and your show starts here at KABC at 11 o'clock. Maila ignored them. Because George Gobel was the #1 show in America, the most watched in the entire nation, and she had a part on that show, a skit. And I have it. It's on the internet now. It's quite well. She does an excellent job. And then I think of her taking the applause from a live audience, standing up and taking her bows, how she must have felt. Mm-hmm. I have finally done what I wanted to do. I'm on the #1 show in America as Vampira, the greatest moment of her life. And 8 days or 5, within a week, she was fired. That was it.
That seems harsh.
So Vampira was no more, and she was under contract to not appear as Vampira until October, from April to October, 6 more months of her contract. And she said that was long enough for America to forget who she was. And as it turned out, it was.
That's incredible, because because there was nothing like her on television.
No, prior to her being fired, of course, KABC offered to buy Vampira, and because they wanted to have all kinds of Vampiras all over the nation. Whatever that's called, I can't think of the word now, but, we'll have a Vampira in every major city, because now it's owned by KABC. And Maila said, no, I will give you 49%, but I will keep 51%. And they didn't like that. They wanted to own Vampira, and she wouldn't sell out. She wouldn't. She never did sell out.
No. And I think it's important for people who may not understand what we're talking about here with the George Gobel show being live. Like nothing, especially, very few things were video recorded at that time, because that was a relatively new technology. So most all shows were live, and then they were kinescoped, meaning that there's a camera pointed at the screen, and it recorded what we'd see on film. And if I'm not mistaken, that bit from George Gobel is a kinescope, and that it's just not a matter of, I'm going to pre-record something months in advance and play it. It literally is. It was live. Everything was live at that time.
That's right, and the entire the kinescope survived where Maila appeared on the George Gobel show. So we're thankful for that. But very, very few minutes, I think 3 minutes of the Vampira show exist that we've been able to find.
And that was something else that I was blown away by, because we've seen her either just as imagery or whatever else for so long, to realize the show that it actually all was based on, there really isn't anything that exists from it. That was a real surprise for me.
Yeah, nothing exists. And I should mention that when Vampira premiered, it was only shown in the Los Angeles area. That was it. And within 6 weeks, maybe even less, Life magazine came to do an article on Vampira and gave her 4 pages in the Life magazine with a show that only appeared in Los Angeles. She was flooded with email. I mean, it was such a hit in 1954 America. Eisenhower was president, and everything was very staid and, different than it is now, for sure. Women were staying at home, raising children, cooking and cleaning and doing the laundry and wearing skirts and dresses and pearls, like Beaver Cleaver's mother. And here comes this woman dressed like a ghoul.
Yeah.
Saying that she doesn't sign autographs, she signs epithets, or,
Yeah.
And she had a wonderful meeting where everyone decided how they were going to commit suicide, and if they were unsuccessful, they could buy Yellow Cross insurance for there was nothing sadder than an unsuccessful suicide. And, and this is on television, and people are shocked, amazed, and going, what is this? And this woman had the tiniest waist. It was about the diameter of a 45 record.
Yeah.
It was, 17 inches. And she just looked bizarre. Was she even human?
I mean, but yet, is she even human? But in the best possible way. I mean, she was just. I mean, you could just imagine a lot of, and not to be trying to be crude or anything, but a lot of teenage boys who loved probably watching Vampira, right? A lot of crushes.
She padded her bust and she padded her hips to make her waist look even smaller.
Wow.
So because she did not have a large breast. Mm-hmm. She was sort of small, and so she had to, pad them up and pad the hips up and, make herself look more curvy, and she did that.
So why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and take our next break here. When we come back, we'll put in our last segment on this. What a great conversation. I'm loving every second of this. We have Sandra Niemi. We're talking about her aunt, Maila Nurmi. We're talking about Glamour Ghoul, the passion and pain of the real Vampira, Maila Nurmi. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. It's that time of year again where the weather is getting nice and it's time to get out of the house for some family fun. Lilliput is the perfect place and is open for the season. Be the first to take on their newest escape room, The Bunker. It's intense, exciting, and totally unforgettable. Prefer spooky? Try the Haunted Mansion. When you're done escaping, hit the mini golf course, go-karts, and jump pads. Lilliput is perfect for parties and group events too. Visit lilliput.net for hours and start your spring adventures at Lilliput.
Des Moines Con returns to the Iowa Events Center Hy-Vee Hall May 30th through June 1st. Des Moines Con is a celebration of comics, toys, TV, film, art, cosplay, games, and all things nerdy. It's also a family-friendly event where you can meet your favorite celebrities, browse the vendor hall and artist alley for the coolest merch, watch celebrity Q&As, and even more. Des Moines Con is bigger and better than ever before, with guests like Daredevil himself, Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, also from Daredevil, Full Metal Jacket, Law & Order, Saturday Only, plus other great guests from voice actors to authors over the entire weekend. 3 days of action-packed fun at the Iowa Events Center Hy-Vee Hall. Tickets start at $60. Kids tickets are just $8 for the entire weekend. Don't wait to get your tickets. Buy your tickets and get more information at DesMoinesCon.com. And don't forget, Madison Comic and Pop Culture Expo and Twin Cities Con are coming up this year too. New guests are being announced all the time. Go to NerdStreetUSA.com for more information.
Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio. We see the return of psychic medium Refined Divine. It's one-question readings. We haven't had her on in a while. It's going to be great to catch up with her and see what she's been up to. And you know how it goes. You join us, you ask a question, she's going to answer it for you, and she's going to answer what's going on in your life, help you if you have questions about money, relationships, all that good stuff. Deb is there to help, and it's going to be a fantastic hour. I can't wait to have her back. It's been way too long. That's going to be tomorrow. But we are doing this wonderful show today, and I'm going to be honest, during the break, I already asked our guest if she would like to come back at some point because I would love to have her back, and she said, yeah, maybe if it all seems all right. So we're talking with author Sandra Niemi. We're talking about her book, Glamour Ghoul, The Passion and Pain of the Real Vampira, Maila Nurmi. We've been talking about Maila the whole hour, and just such a wonderful, fascinating person. And truly, Sandra, what I really love about it is, you really get the amount of love and respect you have for Maila just in this interview alone. The book itself, even more so.
Well, it was a labor of love, and I knew that I had to write it because, like I said, she had no family left except for my daughter and my 2 grandchildren, but other than that, her mother, father, and her brother were all dead. And who else was? There were friends. She had friends in L.A., but they didn't know. They only knew what she told them. And one of the things that she told them was that she was born in Betsamo, Finland. Mm-hmm. And that was not true. She was born in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Same place my father was born. Her mother was born in Boston. Her father was born in Finland. And right off the bat, I knew, this stuff's going to be, anybody that writes this stuff is, they don't know. Maila had her own reasons for saying she was born in Finland, and I'm sure she made that up when she was very young, and she wanted to be thought of as very exotic. And so she made that up. The same reason why she never legally changed her name from Niemi to Nurmi, but she did that in 1945 because she was mad at her dad. I don't want your last name. And at that time, there was a very, very famous Finnish Olympian named Paavo Nurmi. And so she thought, well, that's a name that really people understand and know, so I'm going to become a Nurmi. And that's how she became Maila Nurmi.
Wow.
She was legally Maila Nurmi.
I see. Now, I was going through her Wikipedia page, and we all know that Wikipedia isn't always the most, it's not the most factual based. Maybe sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I read in here, because this other person is someone I've been fascinated by for years, and it said that Maila was fired in 1944 by Mae West in West Broadway's play Catherine Was Great.
Yes, that's true.
Wow. I've always found Mae West to be, also a very fascinating person in so many ways. I mean, but it sounded like that believed was West feared that she was being upstaged by Maila.
That's true also. And so she was fired. I have what do you call it when you attend a play and they give you a program?
Like the playbill?
She's listed as a lady in waiting, and her name is spelled Maila, M-I-L-A, without the A, just M-I-L-A, Niemi, her real last name. And then she was fired. And so from that point on, she went into spook scandal, and that's where she was discovered, and she went to Hollywood to meet Howard Hunt. She was supposed to be the next Lauren Bacall, but she messed up there. Mm. She ripped up her contract in front of Howard Hughes and Howard Hunt. I can't remember which one his name is. Anyway, she went to his office and ripped up her contract and said, please deposit this in one of your many waste baskets.
Wow.
And walked out the door. So at that time, she slammed the door on her motion picture career.
Well, you could say that she had a very strong self-worth that she wasn't going to back down from, right?
No, she never did. She never backed down. Nope.
That
was Maila. Like she said, she was offered thousands and thousands of dollars for Vampira, and she never sold out, no matter how destitute she was.
Wow.
That was her creation. She says, I birthed her, and I raised her, and she's my daughter, and I'm not going to sell her now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she was really ahead of her time with all that, with her business sense, with even the creation, with what Vampire was, this kind of, sexual sort of, and the dark humor, that dark humor being on television, that really had to have been, like you said earlier, strange for some, but a lot of people clearly loved it.
Right. Like she said, she thought before she created Vampira, at first KABC wanted to hire her as one of Charles Adams' homebody matriarch. It was a cartoon that appeared in the Saturday Evening Post,
mm-hmm.
and it was, you can find them on the internet, the homebodies.
Yeah.
And it's what the Addams Family is sort of based on.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, when she went to appear at KABC, she said, well, who are going to be the other characters? They said, we don't have that kind of money. We just want you. And she said, well, I can't do that because I would infringe upon Charles Adams. He owns the homebodies, and that isn't how I operate. That isn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
And so the manager said, well, you have 3 days to change the character into something that we would be interested in. And that's how she came upon Vampira. She thought, well, what do people want? Well, they all think about sex, death, and taxes. So I can do the sex and death part, and I'll leave the taxes to the Republicans. He had a great sense of humor.
Well, and no wonder why you said that, she wanted to do the monologues and stuff and also be an orator, and that's not an easy thing to do. That you have to have like a high level of just wit, don't you?
Yeah, you do have to have that, and she had that down pat. She had right after she got to Los Angeles, she went to a place called Clifton's Cafeteria. Clifton's Cafeteria was still there in 2009 when I went to Los Angeles, and I actually went there. But Clifton's Cafeteria, when Maila frequented the place, had a contest to give a monologue, something that they had written themselves, the contestants had written themselves, and then performed it. And she won. And she won a chicken dinner. And so she knew how to do monologues, and she relished in it. But as Vampira on the show, she was doing sort of monologues before they would show the film of the night, which was a horror movie, usually, but not always. They ran out of horror movies, so they had to show murder movies masquerading as horror movies.
Sure.
And the writer of Vampira was a man by the name of Paul Robinson, whom Maila loved. She said he was very talented, but he allowed her to, say whatever she wanted. When she was performing, she went off script quite often, and those were her own words and her own thoughts. So, there she was, performing monologues of sorts.
That's where it hurts even more that so much of this doesn't exist, because those are truly creative pieces. We are, as we have about 5 minutes or so left here, and once again, the book is titled Glamour Ghoul, The Passions and Pain of the Real Vampira, Maila Nurmi, written by Sandra Niemi, and available on Amazon and other places as well. With that being said, I have to ask, I think I'd be hunted down if I didn't talk about the fact that, Lisa Marie played Vampira, or at least her character that was in Plan 9 from Outer Space. Lisa Marie played that in Ed Wood. Did Maila ever talk about what she thought of Ed Wood or the film Ed Wood, or did she see it? I'm just curious.
The only thing I know she said is she was happy that Lisa Marie was a Sagittarian, like she was. She was really into that zodiac stuff, And the one thing that she did not like about Lisa Marie's performance is that when she was walking down the smoky corridor, she should have had her arms out akimbo from her waist to draw attention to the small waist. And she had her arms down more that did not showcase the small waist. That's what she said. That's the only thing that I know she said.
It's really interesting how Plan 9 from Outer Space became such this great big cult film. I mean, I can't imagine anyone ever would have thought that.
It's a horrible film.
It is.
It really is. Maila, didn't say a word. Not one word. She was too embarrassed to, say the words on her script and ask permission if she could just remain mute. And supposedly Ed Wood said, I don't care. We just want your name anyway.
Well, yeah, her and like Bela Lugosi. I mean, they're big names. I mean, he didn't make it too far into the film. Did she even meet him at all? Because he died fairly early on, didn't he?
Like she somebody said it's such a great movie that I co-starred with a dead man, and that's what Maila said, and it's true.
It is true. Oh my gosh. she co-starred with a dead man, and a stand-in that would just put his hand over his face with a cape, and hoping that people don't realize it's not Bela.
That was Bela's dentist.
Oh, was it really?
Bela. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's who they got to play the part of Bela, and with the cape over the face, that was his dentist.
Oh gosh, that's great. And that to me, that's I mean, there's so many great films in Hollywood, 1950s, but that's the kind of the direction I think of when I think of 50s films in Hollywood. Just that sort of like, I guess in a way, that can-do attitude, and I never really thought about it until you brought it up that, yeah, Vampira, that's the name. That's the name for, the big name for the film. It truly is.
I hope someday they make a biopic of her. It won't be in my lifetime, but perhaps in my daughter's lifetime. I'm sure there will be a film made of her life, but not now. Right now, I really want her to have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She deserves it.
Is anyone trying to get? Because that's not cheap at all, isn't it? Is it like $35,000 or something like that?
I heard it was $50,000.
You'd know better than I would, yeah.
But she walked those streets for 60 years with a cane for most of them, because she became disabled at the age of 47 due to pernicious anemia. And she still walked every day with a cane, and she contributed so much to the television industry that she deserves a star, and that's what I'm going to work on next.
That is fantastic. Once again, the book is called Glamour Ghoul: The Passions and Pain of the Real Vampira, Maila Nurmi, written by Sandra Niemi. What a great conversation. I was so happy to get you on, and this was fantastic. And Sandra, can we get you on again, and we can continue reminiscing about Maila and celebrating her life?
Absolutely, I would love that.
Me too. Let's do that, folks. You can get the book on Amazon. And Sandra, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank.
Goodbye.
All righty, and we will be back tomorrow with Refined Divine One Question readings. Everyone, have a good night.